Jake Miller wiped the sweat from his forehead as he floated outside the mining station. The vast darkness of space stretched around him like a black ocean filled with tiny diamonds. He had been working on the outer hull for 3 hours now, fixing a broken communication array that kept losing signal to Earth. The job was supposed to be simple, but nothing was ever simple when you worked on New Hope Station. The mining station orbited slowly through the asteroid belt, harvesting valuable metals from the floating rocks. Jake had been working here for 2 years as a maintenance engineer. He missed Texas and the feel of real ground under his feet, but the pay was good and someone had to keep the station running. Most days were quiet, just him and his tools floating in the silence of space. That morning started like any other until Jake saw something glinting near a small asteroid about a mile away. At first he thought it was just another piece of space junk, but as he looked closer through his helmet display, he could see it was shaped wrong. It looked like a small ship, maybe the size of a cargo pod, but it was damaged and spinning slowly. Jake checked his oxygen levels and found he had enough for another hour outside. He fired his suit thrusters and moved toward the object, calling back to the station on his radio. "Control, this is Jake. I found something out here. Looks like a ship." The voice of Betty Kane, the station controller, crackled through his headset. "What kind of ship, Jake? We got no scheduled arrivals today." "I don't know yet. It's small and looks damaged. I'm going to check it out." Betty was quiet for a moment. "Be careful out there. If it's pirates, you get back here fast." Jake moved closer to the strange ship. As he got near, he could see it was unlike anything he had ever seen before. The hull was smooth and had a blue-green color that seemed to shift in the starlight. There were no visible engines or weapons, just gentle curves and what looked like crystal windows. Burn marks covered one side, and he could see a large hole torn in the rear section. He found an airlock that was partially open. Jake hesitated, for a moment, thinking about station protocol. He was supposed to report any alien contact immediately and wait for orders. But if someone was hurt inside, they might not have time to wait for the bureaucrats to make decisions. Jake squeezed through the damaged airlock and found himself in a small cabin filled with soft blue light. The air felt thick and humid, and his suit sensors showed it was safe to breathe, though the oxygen content was lower than normal. Strange symbols glowed on panels around the walls, and everything felt organic rather than mechanical. In the center of the cabin, Jake found her. She was lying unconscious on what looked like a medical bed that had grown from the floor. Her skin was a beautiful shade of blue, like the color of Earth's oceans, and she was about the size of a human teenager. She wore simple clothes that seemed to be made from the same material as the ship itself. Her breathing was shallow, and Jake could see she was badly injured. Jake knelt beside her and checked for a pulse. Her heart was beating, but it felt too fast and too weak. She had cuts on her arms and a bad burn on her shoulder. Most concerning was a piece of metal from her damaged breathing mask that had lodged near her throat. He looked around the ship for medical supplies and found what appeared to be a first aid kit, though everything was designed for her physiology. Jake carefully removed the metal piece from her breathing apparatus and used his own emergency medical supplies to clean and bandage her wounds. He had learned basic first aid during his training, and he hoped it would work on her alien biology. The girl stirred as he worked, opening eyes that were large and silver like starlight. She looked at him with fear at first, then confusion. She tried to speak, but her voice was weak, and the words were in a language he had never heard. "Easy there," Jake said softly. "I'm here to help. You're hurt, but you're going to be okay." She seemed to understand his tone, if not his words. She pointed to her ship's damaged systems and made distressed sounds. Jake looked around and realized her life support was failing. The blue lights were dimming, and he could feel the air getting thinner. Jake made a decision that would change everything. Instead of taking her back to the station where she would become a specimen for study, he would help her fix her ship and let her go free. It felt like the right thing to do, the human thing to do. He spent the next 4 hours moving back and forth between her ship and the station, bringing tools and spare parts. Jake told Betty he was working on a damaged probe he had found, which was technically true. The girl watched him work with growing trust, occasionally pointing to systems or making suggestions in her musical language. Jake discovered that her technology was incredibly advanced, but worked on principles similar to human engineering. Where humans used metal and circuits, she used living crystal and organic processors. But the basic concepts of power flow and system integration were the same. His maintenance experience helped him understand how to bridge the gap between their technologies. As her ship's systems came back online, the girl grew stronger. She began trying to speak English, using words she had apparently learned from intercepted human broadcasts. "Thank you," she said slowly, her voice like wind chimes. "I am Zara." "I'm Jake," he replied, pointing to himself. "Jake Miller." Zara smiled, and Jake felt his heart skip a beat. Her smile was radiant and filled with genuine warmth. She pointed to herself and then to the stars, trying to explain where she came from. She showed him images on her ship's displays of beautiful crystal cities floating in space and blue-skinned people like herself. Through broken English and gestures, Zara explained that she had been running from bad people who wanted to hurt her. Pirates had attacked her ship and she had barely escaped. She was trying to reach a safe place when her ship had failed. Jake worked for 2 more days helping Zara repair her ship, always making excuses to Betty about why he needed so much time outside. Zara was a quick learner and picked up more English with every conversation. She told him about her home among the stars and how different but wonderful humans seemed to her. On the 3rd day, her ship was ready to fly again. Zara stood in the airlock, ready to leave, but she turned back to Jake one more time. She reached into her clothes and pulled out a small crystal pendant that glowed with soft blue light. "For you," she said, placing it in his hand. So Zara never forgets Jake Miller, kind human who saved Blue Girl. She pressed something into his other hand, a small device that translated her words. "I promise I will not forget your kindness, Jake Miller of Earth. Someday I will repay this debt." Jake watched as her ship powered up and glided away into the asteroid field, disappearing among the rocks and stars. He looked down at the crystal pendant in his hand, feeling its warm glow against his palm. He had no idea that the blue alien, girl he had just saved, was actually a princess, and that his simple act of human kindness had just changed the course of galactic history. 2 years had passed since Jake Miller last saw the blue alien girl named Zara. He had transferred from the asteroid mining station to Armstrong Base on the Moon, where he now worked as a senior maintenance engineer. The promotion came with better pay and a nicer living quarters with an actual window that looked out at Earth. Every night he would look at the blue marble hanging in the black sky and think about Zara somewhere among the stars. Jake still wore the crystal pendant she had given him. It hung around his neck under his work shirt, glowing softly against his chest. Sometimes late at night when he couldn't sleep, he would hold it and wonder if he would ever see her again. Betty Kane had asked him several times about the strange energy readings his suit had recorded during those 3 days, but Jake had always managed to change the subject. Life on Armstrong Base was routine and peaceful. Jake spent his days maintaining the mining equipment and life support systems that kept the lunar colony running. The base housed about 300 people who worked the moon's mineral deposits and conducted research. It was quiet work, but Jake found satisfaction in keeping everything running smoothly. That changed on a Tuesday morning when alarms started, blaring throughout the base. Jake was working in the main engineering bay when the emergency alert system activated. The voice of Commander Patricia Hayes echoed through the corridors. "All personnel report to emergency stations. Unknown ships have entered the solar system. This is not a drill." Jake dropped his tools and ran to the nearest observation deck along with dozens of other workers. Through the reinforced windows, he could see Earth hanging peacefully in space, as it always did. But something was different. Tiny points of light were moving across the star field, growing larger by the minute. "What do you think they are?" asked Mary Chen, one of the research scientists, standing next to Jake. "I don't know," Jake replied, but his heart was racing. The crystal pendant against his chest had started glowing brighter than it ever had before. It was almost warm now, pulsing gently like a heartbeat. Within an hour, the ships were close enough to see clearly. Jake had never seen anything so beautiful in his life. They were not like the crude metal boxes that humans built for space travel. These ships looked like they were grown rather than constructed, with flowing curves and surfaces that seemed to be made from living crystal. They caught and reflected the light of the sun in brilliant patterns of blue and silver. There were dozens of them, ranging from small scout ships to massive vessels that dwarfed anything humanity had ever built. They moved with grace and purpose, taking positions around Earth and the Moon in what was clearly a defensive formation. But they made no aggressive moves and sent no weapons fire. Commander Hayes called all senior personnel to the main conference room. Jake found himself included in the group, probably because of his experience with alien technology, though he had never told anyone about that experience. The conference room was packed with engineers, scientists, and military officers, all talking nervously about what the alien arrival might mean. "People, listen up," Commander Hayes said, calling for quiet. "We've received communication from Earth Command. The alien ships are broadcasting on multiple frequencies, and our linguists are working to decode their messages. What we know so far is that they appear to be peaceful and are requesting dialogue." Dr. Robert Klein, the base's chief scientist, raised his hand. "Commander, do we have any idea where they came from or what they want?" "Negative on both counts," Hayes replied. "But there's something strange about their communication attempts. They're specifically asking for someone by name." Jake felt the pendant grow warmer against his chest. A cold feeling of anticipation ran down his spine. "They're asking for Jake Miller," Commander Hayes continued, looking directly at him. "They seem to know exactly who you are and where you work." Every eye in the room turned to Jake. He felt his mouth go dry as dozens of questions hit him at once. I don't understand," he said, though part of him was beginning to. "Miller, do you have any idea why aliens would know your name?" Hayes asked. Before Jake could answer, the base's communication system crackled to life. A voice spoke in perfect English, though it carried a musical quality that Jake recognized immediately. "People of Armstrong Base, this is Princess Zara Veltar of the Celestial Empire. We come in peace and friendship. We request permission to meet with Jake Miller, who once showed great kindness to one of our people. We mean no harm to anyone." Jake's legs nearly gave out. That voice, that musical tone he remembered from 2 years ago when a frightened blue girl had whispered, "Thank you," in broken English. But now she spoke with confidence and authority, and she had called herself a princess. Commander Hayes stared at Jake with a mixture of suspicion and amazement. "Miller, you better start talking. Right now." Jake took a deep breath and pulled the crystal pendant from under his shirt. It was glowing so brightly now that it lit up the entire conference room with soft blue light. "2 years ago, while I was working at New Hope Station, I found a damaged ship in the asteroid belt. There was an injured alien girl inside. I helped repair her ship and let her go." The room erupted in angry voices. "You violated first contact protocols," shouted Major Lisa Park. "You should have reported this immediately." "The girl was dying," Jake said firmly. "I couldn't just let her die while we waited for paperwork to be processed." Commander Hayes held up her hand for silence. "What's done is done. Right now, we need to figure out how to handle this situation." She activated the communication system. "Princess Zara, this is Commander Hayes of Armstrong Base. Jake Miller is here and safe. What are your intentions?" "Commander Hayes, we request permission to transport Jake Miller to our flagship for a reunion with an old friend. We also bring an offer of friendship between our peoples. Jake Miller's kindness 2 years ago has had consequences that reach across the galaxy." Hayes looked at Jake. "It's your choice, Miller, but understand that you'll be representing all of humanity in this meeting." Jake nodded, his mind racing. The frightened refugee he had helped was apparently royalty from an advanced alien civilization, and somehow his simple act of fixing her ship had led to first contact between humans and aliens. Within an hour, a small crystalline ship approached Armstrong Base. It was similar to the one Jake had repaired 2 years ago, but larger and more elegant. The ship docked with the base's main airlock, and Jake found himself walking toward a meeting that would change everything. The airlock opened, and Jake stepped into a corridor that seemed to be made from living light. The walls pulsed gently, with soft colors, and the air smelled like flowers after rain. At the end of the corridor stood a figure that made Jake's heart skip. Zara was taller now and carried herself with regal bearing, but her skin was still the same beautiful blue he remembered. She wore flowing robes that seemed to be cut from starlight itself, and on her head sat a crown made from the same crystal as the pendant she had given him. But when she saw Jake, her formal composure melted away, and she smiled with the same radiant warmth he remembered. Jake Miller, she said, walking toward him with arms outstretched. My dear friend, you look exactly as I remember. Zara, Jake said, hardly believing this was real. You're a princess. She laughed, a sound like silver bells. I am actually Empress now. My father died 6 months ago and I inherited the throne. But to you, I will always be just Zara, the blue girl you saved in the darkness between the stars. They stood facing each other in the crystal corridor, the former maintenance worker and the alien empress, while outside their ships the fate of two civilizations hung in the balance. Jake realized that his life was about to become much more complicated than fixing broken equipment and replacing worn parts. I told you I would not forget your kindness, Zara said softly. I have come to keep that promise. But first, we must talk. There are things you need to know about the galaxy, about my people, and about why your simple act of compassion has made you one of the most important humans who ever lived. Jake followed Zara through corridors that seemed to breathe with life. The walls of her flagship were not made from metal and plastic like human ships, but from some kind of living crystal that responded to their presence. Soft light followed them as they walked, and Jake could swear he heard something like music in the air around them. They entered a vast chamber that took Jake's breath away. The ceiling was transparent crystal that showed the star field outside, and floating platforms, connected by bridges of light, created different levels throughout the space. Gardens grew in the air without soil, and small creatures that looked like butterflies made of pure energy danced between glowing flowers. Welcome to the heart of Starlight Sovereign, Zara said, gesturing to the amazing room around them. This is where I conduct the business of ruling the Celestial Empire. Jake tried to process what he was seeing. 2 years ago, he had helped repair a small damaged ship belonging to a refugee girl. Now he was standing in what appeared to be a palace floating in space, talking to the ruler of an interstellar empire. Zara, I don't understand any of this, he said honestly. When I found you, you were running from pirates. You never said anything about being royalty. Zara smiled sadly and gestured for him to sit on one of the floating platforms. As soon as they sat down, the platform began to glow softly and move through the chamber, giving them privacy to talk. I could not tell you the truth then, she said. I was running from more than just pirates. I was running from my destiny, from an arranged marriage to a cruel warlord named Duke Varthak, who wanted to use our marriage to gain power in the Empire. My father, the Emperor, had agreed to the marriage for political reasons. Jake listened, as Zara explained how she had stolen a ship and tried to escape to the outer rim of the galaxy where she could live in hiding. The pirates who attacked her had been sent by Varthak to bring her back. When you saved me, you did more than repair my ship, Zara continued. You showed me that there was another way to live, a way based on kindness instead of power. You risked your safety to help a stranger, expecting nothing in return. I had never seen such behavior before. She stood up and moved to a control panel that rose from the platform's surface. Images appeared in the air around them, showing scenes from across the galaxy. Jake saw worlds filled with crystal cities, space stations the size of moons, and fleets of ships that numbered in the thousands. This is the Celestial Empire, Zara said. We control over 400 star systems and have been the dominant power in this region of the galaxy for 10,000 years. But we are not alone. The images changed to show other alien civilizations. Jake saw reptilian beings in mechanical armor, insect-like creatures building hive cities, and energy beings that looked like living lightning. There are hundreds of intelligent species in the galaxy, Jake. Most of them belong to something called the Galactic Federation. It is an alliance of worlds that work together for trade, defense, and mutual support. But humanity has never been invited to join. Why not? Jake asked. Zara looked uncomfortable. Because most of the galaxy considers humans to be too young and too violent to be trusted with advanced technology. Your species has only had spaceflight for a few decades, and your history is filled with wars and conflicts. The Federation believes humans need another 1,000 years to mature before they can be trusted. Jake felt a flash of anger. So they judge all of humanity based on our past. That doesn't seem fair. I agree, Zara said firmly. That is why I have spent the last 2 years studying your species. The crystal pendant I gave you contains microscopic monitoring devices that have been recording your actions and transmitting The data back to my scientists. Jake instinctively reached for the pendant around his neck. You've been spying on me. I have been learning about you, Zara corrected. And through you, learning about what humans are truly capable of. Jake, in the 2 years since I returned home, you have helped solve 47 different problems for other people on your stations. You have prevented 3 accidents that could have killed dozens of workers. You have donated part of your salary to families in need, and you have never asked for recognition or reward. The images around them changed again, showing scenes from Jake's life over the past 2 years. He saw himself helping train new workers, staying late to fix critical systems, and sharing his lunch with a colleague who had forgotten to bring food. This is what my scientists find remarkable about humans, Zara continued. You help others even when there is no benefit to yourself. You solve problems that other species would consider impossible. You adapt to new situations faster than any race we have studied. Most importantly, you never give up hope, even in the darkest circumstances. Jake shook his head. I'm just a maintenance engineer. I fix things that are broken. Any human would do the same. Exactly, Zara said with excitement. Any human would do the same. That is what makes your species so special. What you consider normal behavior is extraordinary by galactic standards. She moved to another control panel, and the chamber around them shifted to show a tactical display of the solar system. Red markers appeared throughout the star map, indicating threats that Jake couldn't identify. Jake, I have not come here just to repay an old debt. I have come because the galaxy needs humanity's help, and I believe you can convince your people to provide it. The display zoomed out to show a larger section of the galaxy. Jake could see a dark region spreading like a stain across the star map, consuming everything in its path. This is the Void Swarm, Zara said grimly. They are a race of machines, created by a civilization that destroyed itself millions of years ago. The machines continue to follow their original programming, consume all matter and energy to build more machines. They have already destroyed over 50 star systems, and they are moving toward inhabited space. Jake studied the display with growing horror. How long until they reach Earth? Our best estimates say 18 months. The Federation has been fighting them for 5 years, but our conventional tactics are not working. The machines adapt to our weapons and strategies faster than we can develop new ones. We need a different approach, a human approach. Zara turned to face Jake directly. I am offering humanity immediate membership in the Galactic Federation, along with access to all our technology and resources. In return, I need Earth's brightest minds to help us find a way to stop the Void Swarm before they consume everything we hold dear. Jake felt overwhelmed by the scope of what Zara was proposing. I'm not qualified to make decisions for all of humanity. I'm just one person. You are the person who saved me when you could have ignored my suffering, Zara replied. You are the person who has spent 2 years proving that humans are worthy of trust and respect. More importantly, you are the person I trust to help bridge the gap between our peoples. She moved closer to him, and Jake could see the weight of responsibility in her silver eyes. Jake, I am asking you to become Earth's first ambassador to the Galactic Federation. I am asking you to help me convince both humans and aliens that we can work together to face this threat. The platform they were sitting on moved to a window that showed Earth hanging in space like a blue jewel. Jake could see the moon where Armstrong Base sat, and beyond that the vast emptiness where the Void Swarm was slowly approaching. What if I say no? Jake asked. Then I will respect your decision and try to find another way, Zara said simply. But Jake, you showed me that one person's kindness can change everything. I believe that one person's courage can save the galaxy. Jake looked out at Earth, thinking about everyone he knew who lived on that blue planet. He thought about his family in Texas, about Betty Kane and the crew at New Hope Station, about all the people on Armstrong Base who trusted him to keep their life support systems running. If I do this, he said slowly, I want to bring some other humans with me. I can't represent an entire species by myself. Zara smiled, and Jake realized she had been hoping he would say yes. I was hoping you would agree. I have already identified 2 other humans who would be perfect for this mission. Lisa Park, a scientist from your lunar base, and Maria Santos, a former military strategist who now works on Mars. You've been watching them too, Jake said. I have been watching many humans. looking for the best representatives of your species. You three have the skills and personalities we need to make this work. Jake took a deep breath and looked out at the stars. He had come a long way from the maintenance engineer who found a damaged alien ship in an asteroid field. But maybe that was the point. Maybe being willing to help when help was needed was exactly what made humans special. "All right, Zara," he said finally. "I'll do it. I'll help you save the galaxy." Jake found himself standing in the Grand Assembly of the Galactic Federation 3 weeks after accepting Zara's proposal. The massive chamber was carved from a single crystal that floated in space between 12 different star systems. Representatives from hundreds of alien species filled the hall, their voices creating a symphony of clicks, hums, and musical tones that the translation devices barely managed to convert into understandable speech. Beside him stood Lisa Park, the brilliant scientist from Armstrong Base who specialized in quantum physics and biological systems. On his other side was Maria Santos, a former military strategist who had spent 5 years developing defense systems for the Mars colonies. Both women had accepted the mission after Jake explained the situation, though Lisa had needed more convincing than Maria. "I still can't believe we're really here," Lisa whispered, staring at the aliens around them. A delegation of crystalline beings walked past, their bodies chiming like wind bells with each step. "3 weeks ago, I was studying rock samples. Now, I'm supposed to help save the galaxy." "Focus on the science," Maria advised quietly. "That's what we're here for. Jake handles the diplomacy, you handle the technology, and I handle the tactics. We can do this." Jake appreciated their confidence, but he felt the weight of representing humanity pressing down on him like a physical force. The crystal pendant Zara had given him years ago now hung openly around his neck, marking him as a friend of the Celestial Empire. Many of the aliens in the assembly kept staring at it with expressions he couldn't read. Zara stood at the center of the chamber wearing her crown and formal robes of state. She had explained to Jake that as Empress of the Celestial Empire, she had enough political power to sponsor humanity's admission to the Federation, but only if they could prove themselves worthy. "The testing will take place over the next 6 months, she had told them during their briefing. "You will be given challenges that have stumped our best minds for years. If you can solve even half of them, the Federation will accept humanity as a junior member. If you can solve all of them, humanity will be granted full membership immediately." The first test came within days of their arrival at the Federation's central hub. Jake and his team were taken to a dying world called Kepler-7, where the native population was slowly suffocating as their atmosphere leaked into space. The planet's magnetic field had been damaged by a massive solar flare, and conventional technology couldn't repair it fast enough to save the 8 billion inhabitants. "We've been working on this problem for 3 years, explained Dr. Velthon, a tall alien with blue-green skin and 4 arms. "Our best atmospheric engineers estimate it would take 50 years to repair the magnetic field using our current methods. The population will be dead in 10. Lisa studied the planet's specifications, while Maria analyzed the evacuation scenarios that had been proposed. Jake walked around the command center, looking at the problem from a maintenance engineer's perspective, rather than a scientist's. "What if we don't try to fix the magnetic field?" Jake said after an hour of study. "What if we work around it instead?" Dr. Velthon looked confused. "I do not understand. The magnetic field is essential for maintaining atmospheric pressure." Jake pointed to the holographic display showing the planet's structure. "Back home, when we can't fix a broken system, sometimes we bypass it entirely. What if we create an artificial atmospheric containment field using a network of satellites?" "The power requirements would be enormous," Lisa said, but Jake could see her mind working on the problem. "Unless we could tap into the planet's geothermal energy and use a distributed network instead of centralized generation." Maria nodded thoughtfully. "And if we position the satellites in a geometric pattern that reinforces the field strength, we could reduce the number needed by 60%. Within 6 hours, the 3 humans had designed a solution that the Federation's engineers admitted would work. It would take 2 years to implement instead of 50, and it would cost a fraction of what the magnetic field repair would have required. The second test took them to a space station where 2 alien species had been locked in a trade dispute for decades. The Zorathi were a warrior race who valued honor above profit, while the Milani were merchants who believed everything could be negotiated. Their conflict had escalated to the point where they were threatening war over shipping routes through their shared star system. "We have tried mediation for 20 years, explained Ambassador Krindar, a Federation diplomat with tentacles instead of arms. "Neither side will compromise, and both have valid legal claims under galactic law." Jake spent 3 days listening to both sides present their arguments. The Zorathi believed the Milani were cheating them with unfair contract terms. The Milani believed the Zorathi were too proud to acknowledge the economic realities of interstellar trade. On the 4th day, Jake proposed a solution that surprised everyone. "What if we stop trying to decide who's right and instead focus on what both sides actually want?" he suggested during a joint meeting with representatives from both species. "The Zorathi want respect for their traditions and fair treatment in trade deals. The Milani want profitable commerce and efficient shipping routes. These aren't opposite goals." Jake worked with Lisa and Maria to design a new trade agreement that included cultural exchange programs alongside commercial contracts. Zorathi warriors would serve as security escorts for Milani merchant ships, giving them the honor and respect they craved while providing the merchants with protection they needed. In return, the Milani would teach the Zorathi advanced business, techniques that would help them develop their own economy. "You have turned enemies into partners," Ambassador Krindar said with amazement. "In 40 years of diplomatic service, I have never seen anything like this." The tests continued across the galaxy. Jake and his team solved a resource crisis on a mining world by developing new extraction techniques that were both more efficient and less environmentally damaging. They helped negotiate peace between two robot civilizations that had been fighting over programming philosophy for centuries. They designed defense systems that could protect vulnerable worlds from void swarm scouts. With each success, Jake noticed that more aliens began treating them with respect rather than curiosity. Federation scientists started asking for their opinions on unrelated problems. Military commanders requested their input on tactical situations that had nothing to do with the official tests. But not everyone was happy with humanity's success. "This is madness," Duke Varthak declared during a private meeting with other celestial nobles that Jake accidentally overheard. "Zara allows these primitive creatures to embarrass our greatest minds. And for what? They are clever animals. Nothing more." Jake learned that Varthak had been building opposition to Zara's rule ever since she returned from Earth. The Duke believed that associating with humans made the Celestial Empire look weak, and he had been gathering support from nobles, who agreed with him. "The Empress has lost perspective," Varthak continued. "Her fondness for this human has clouded her judgment. She risks our entire civilization for the sake of sentiment." The situation came to a head during the final test, which took place on the Federation's most advanced research station. Jake and his team were asked to review the current anti-void swarm strategies and propose improvements. "We have tried everything," Admiral Cresthall explained, his insectoid features showing exhaustion. "Kinetic weapons, energy weapons, computer, viruses, even dimensional attacks. The machines adapt to everything we throw at them within hours." Lisa spent days studying the Void Swarm's behavioral patterns, while Maria analyzed the tactical reports from dozens of battles. Jake looked at the problem from a completely different angle. "We're thinking about this wrong," he said during their final planning session. "We keep trying to destroy the machines, but that's like trying to kill a virus by attacking individual cells. We need to attack the disease, not the symptoms." "What do you mean?" Maria asked. "The Void Swarm operates on original programming from millions of years ago," Jake explained. "They're following instructions to consume matter and build more machines. But what if we could change those instructions?" Lisa's eyes widened with understanding. "You want to reprogram them. But how do we access machines that are millions of years old and have adaptive defenses?" "We don't access them," Jake said with a smile. "We make them access us. The plan they developed was so audacious that half the Federation Council thought it was insane. Instead of fighting the Void Swarm directly, they would create a trap that looked like the ultimate target, a planet-sized mass of the exact materials the machines were programmed to consume. When the Void Swarm arrived to consume the fake planet, they would find it was actually a massive computer virus designed to spread through their network and rewrite their core programming. Instead of consuming matter, the machines would begin building gardens and habitats for organic life. "It might work," Admiral Cresthall admitted grudgingly, But if it fails, we will have given the enemy access to our most advanced computer systems. Sometimes you have to take big risks to win big victories, Maria said. That's what humans do when everything else has failed. The Void Swarm arrived 3 months early. Jake was working in the construction bay where thousands of Federation ships were building the fake planet that would serve as their trap when the alarms began screaming throughout the facility. Emergency. Lights bathed everything in red as he ran to the command center where Lisa and Maria were coordinating the virus development. "They're here," Admiral Cresthall announced grimly as Jake entered the room. The main display showed a wall of darkness, moving through space toward the Federation's core worlds. It wasn't just ships, it was a solid mass of mechanical entities that blocked out the stars themselves. "How many?" Maria asked, her military training taking over. "Our sensors can't get an accurate count," the Admiral replied. "The swarm is at least 10,000 kilometers wide and appears to be one connected entity. We estimate somewhere between 50 and 100 million individual units." Jake felt his heart sink. The trap they had been building was designed to handle a few thousand Void Swarm machines, not millions. Even if their virus worked perfectly, they wouldn't have time to implement it before the swarm reached populated worlds. "How long until they reach Earth?" he asked. 72 hours, came the reply. Lisa looked up from her computer station where she had been working on the virus code. "I need at least another week to finish the programming. The virus isn't ready yet." "Then we fight." "With what we have," Maria said grimly. "Admiral, what's our defensive capability?" Admiral Cresthall activated a tactical display showing Federation fleet positions. "We have assembled the largest military force in galactic history, over 12,000 ships from 40 different worlds, but our projections show we can delay the swarm for perhaps 6 hours before our defenses are overwhelmed." As they watched, reports began coming in from the outer defense perimeters. The Void Swarm was moving faster than anyone had expected, consuming asteroid mining stations and orbital facilities as it advanced. With each attack, it grew larger and more powerful. That's when the second crisis hit. Empress, a Celestial officer, ran into the command center and approached Zara, who had been coordinating the defense from the Federation facility. "Duke Varthak has seized control of the Imperial fleet. He claims you are unfit to rule and has declared himself regent." Zara's face went pale. "How many ships does he control?" "Approximately 3,000 vessels, including most of our heavy cruisers. He is demanding that all Federation forces withdraw from celestial space and that the humans be handed over to him for trial as war criminals." Jake felt the bottom drop out of his stomach. The Celestial Empire's fleet represented nearly a quarter of the Federation's total firepower. Without them, there was no hope of even delaying the Void Swarm long enough for civilian evacuations. "He has positioned his forces between the swarm and the celestial homeworld," the officer continued. "If we do not comply with his demands, he will withdraw all celestial support and allow the swarm to pass through our territory unchallenged." Zara stood silently for a long moment, her silver eyes reflecting the tactical displays around them. Jake could see the weight of impossible choices pressing down on her shoulders. "If I go to face Varthak, I might be able to convince some of the fleet commanders to rejoin us," she said slowly. "But that would mean abandoning the defense of Earth and the other core worlds." "You can't do that," Jake said immediately. "Your people need you to protect them. And your people need me to help defend Earth," Zara replied. "I cannot be in both places at once." Maria stepped forward. "There might be another way. What if we split our forces, use part of the fleet to defend Earth, while the rest goes to celestial space to deal with Varthak?" "That would leave both groups too weak to accomplish their missions," Admiral Cresthall objected. "We need every ship we have to even hope of slowing the swarm." Jake walked to the tactical display and studied the positions of the approaching threat. An idea was forming in his mind, desperate and probably insane, but it might be their only chance. "What if we don't fight the swarm at all?" he said quietly. Everyone in the room turned to stare at him. "Explain," Zara said. "The virus Lisa is developing, it's designed to rewrite the swarm's programming, right? What if we don't wait for the trap to be ready? What if we deliver it directly to the swarm using human ships?" Lisa shook her head. "Jake, the virus needs a massive computer system to propagate properly. That's why we were building the fake planet. A single ship's computer wouldn't have enough processing power. What about multiple ships working together? Jake asked. Human ships have been designed to network their systems for coordinated operations. If we could link enough of them together, it might work, Lisa said slowly, her scientific mind working through the possibilities. But whoever delivers the virus would have to get close enough to the swarm to establish a direct connection. That would be a suicide mission. Not necessarily, Maria interjected. Human ships are faster and more maneuverable than anything else in the Federation fleet. If we approach from multiple directions simultaneously, some of us might survive long enough to upload the virus. Jake looked around the room at the aliens who had become his friends and allies over the past months. These beings had trusted humanity with their most desperate problems, and humans had found solutions where none seemed possible. Now it was time to prove that trust was justified. I'll lead the mission, he said. This was my idea, and I should be the one to take the risk. No, Zara said firmly. I cannot ask you to sacrifice yourself for our sake. You're not asking, Jake replied. I'm volunteering. This is what humans do, Zara. When someone needs help, we help. When something needs fixing, we fix it. And when someone needs to take a dangerous risk to save others, we take that risk. Admiral Crestal nodded slowly. The human fleet at Earth consists of approximately 200 ships. If we modify them for networking capability and load them with the virus... I'll need volunteers, Jake said. This can't be a suicide mission if we want it to work. The people flying these ships need to believe they can succeed. Within 18 hours, Jake found himself aboard the lead ship of a fleet of human vessels, heading directly toward the approaching void swarm. Every ship in the fleet was crewed by volunteers who understood the risks but believed in the mission. Lisa had worked around the clock to complete the virus and install networking hardware in the human ships. Maria had planned approach vectors that would give them the best chance of survival. As they flew toward almost certain death, Jake received a message from Zara. My dear friend, her voice said over the communication system, I want you to know that I have chosen to defend Earth rather than return to face Varthak. You taught me years ago that leadership means protecting those who cannot protect themselves, regardless of politics or personal cost. Today, I choose to follow that lesson. Jake smiled as he prepared for the most important maintenance job of his life. He was going to fix the galaxy's biggest problem, and he was going to do it the human way, with courage, ingenuity, and a willingness to help others no matter the cost. The void swarm filled the view screen like a wall of mechanical death. Jake's fingers moved over his controls, coordinating with the other human ships as they approached from dozens of different angles. Lisa's voice guided them through the virus upload procedures, while Maria called out tactical updates. Network, connection established, Lisa announced. Virus uploading now. The swarm's defenses activated, sending waves of mechanical fighters to intercept the human ships. Jake watched his friends and colleagues fall one by one as they held their positions, long enough for the virus to spread. But the plan was working. The infection was jumping from machine to machine faster than the swarm could adapt. Upload complete, Lisa shouted over the battle noise. It's working. The virus is spreading throughout their entire network. Around them, the void swarm began to change. Instead of consuming and destroying, the machines started building. Flowers made of metal and crystal began blooming on their hulls. Gardens of light grew where weapons had been. The greatest threat the galaxy had ever known was becoming its greatest gardener. Jake's ship limped back toward the Federation fleet, badly damaged but intact. Through his view screen, he could see Zara's forces engaging Varthak's rebel fleet, while the transformed void swarm flew peacefully past both groups, no longer interested in conquest. As news of the victory spread throughout the galaxy, Jake received word that Duke Varthak had surrendered and acknowledged Zara as the rightful empress. The crisis that had threatened to tear apart both the Celestial Empire and the Federation was over. Months later, Jake stood in the same crystal chamber where Zara had first offered humanity membership in the Galactic Federation. But this time, he wasn't alone. Representatives from Earth filled the room, including Betty Kane from New Hope Station and Commander Hayes from Armstrong Base. The Galactic Federation formally welcomes humanity as a full member, Admiral Crestal announced. Your species has proven that true strength comes not from weapons or technology, but from compassion, ingenuity, and the willingness to help others. Zara approached Jake with a new crystal pendant, this one marking him as Earth's official ambassador. You have kept your promise, my friend. You fixed the galaxy's greatest problem.